Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 4 of the Dog Classroom Podcast. I'm Anne-Marie.
And I'm Amelia.
And we're quite excited to start a new season. I guess I didn't realize already we're like in Season 4, which is pretty cool. I think we're getting just more people actually discovering our podcasts and getting feedback and stuff. So that's pretty nice to have.
Yeah. We can explore some new topics.
Exactly. Okay, so today what we're going to start off with is bringing a new animal. Dog. Yeah, we're not covering anything else there, into the household. So the reason why I'm saying animal is we want to comment on the fact that whether you're bringing an 8 to 12 week old puppy in or whether you're bringing like a rescue, one to basically any age, right, into the house, just different things that you should be aware of in the transitioning to bringing them in the house. Because again, I say a lot of times the transition period or honeymoon period is 4 to 6 weeks where the dog actually realizes like they're staying.
Yeah.
Right?
And like this is their new place.
This is their new place. This is their home. Yeah. So we're going to comment on a little things that we are going to suggest that you guys are doing or we recommend that you not do in those first few weeks.
Yeah, just in the first 2 weeks because we were talking earlier and we're saying that, the dogs don't get enough credit for all of the stuff that they're going through and how well they do take all that in for the most part. Whether you're getting an 8-week-old puppy and you're taking them from their litter mates, their mom, the humans that have raised them, the smells that they're used to, the sounds that they're used to, the routine that they're used to, or you're getting maybe a dog off of a lot of the dogs in our area come from northern reserves where they haven't lived in a home, so they've been free reign, they've been doing whatever they want, and all of a sudden we're putting them inside a house and saying, hey, we're going to do, all this stuff. Yeah. Or maybe you're getting an older dog that's being rehomed from someone and they're just, different lifestyle, still having to adjust. So regardless of where the dog is coming from, it's going to be a big transition.
Yeah, it's going to be a transition. And I think a lot of times we're just so excited to have that dog in our house, we've been looking forward to it, that sometimes we rush and don't take in those little moments or those little thoughts.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time what we see, and we get all the emails and calls and all the stuff, but when can I start training? And people are worried about obedience right off the hop.
Right.
And so we're going to talk about things that we recommend doing and then also maybe some of the things that can wait. A couple weeks, these aren't things that you need to do right away immediately. So why don't we start with like the physical, the home, like making it safe for your new puppy, your new adult dog.
Right. So a lot of times, people want to crate train, or they have to go to work the next day, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay, so where is the animal going to go? Where are they going to stay? So the tricky thing with crate training, unless their previous home did it, or whether the breeder did it,
and was starting it,
is really not fair to bring them into this new household. They've been there for maybe 24 hours, and then we're sticking them in a crate and then leaving. So ideally, if it's possible, taking a few days off work or bringing that animal home on a weekend where you have a bit of time to spend with them. We are going to do a crate training and house training podcast as well. So we're not going to go into a lot of detail with the crate training. So we're just going to encourage you to listen to that one. But where are they going to stay, right?
Yeah, and I think even we all know about puppies and puppy proofing, and we put all the shoes up high, and we, we lock the cabinet doors with the chemicals in it and all that stuff. But an adult dog coming from just another home or from living outdoors or whatever, those things are all going to be new and exciting to them too. So they may get into, the shoes or try to go on the counter or whatever. Right. So it's still important for them to have a safe area that can be sort of dog proof and for them. And again, like you said, people jump to the crate, but if they've been living their life and they don't know about a crate, shoving them in a box and and whatever is not ideal. So we create like a safe zone. So maybe I can talk about a little bit like with Nuggie when she sort of moved into my house and we did a pen instead of a crate right off the hop.
Yeah.
Or some people will have like a spare room or like a mud room or something.
Or they even like to gate them like in a hallway.
Yeah.
But again, it's about learning what the dogs are comfortable with. Like some dogs feel like they need to see out the windows. Some are better not seeing out the windows and more like a den-like.
Yeah.
But see, I guess that's the transition thing, where being able to take a few days to process and them getting to know you and you getting to know them. But again, first starting to leave the animal or the dog, it's suggested, maybe half an hour.
I would even say less than that.
Like, probably even 5 or 10 minutes.
If you're thinking about separation from you, like they're getting to know you, so they're getting a little bit attached to you, and then we are leaving. And so we're like, here's this strange place, and your safe person is gone.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to work on, like, if you have the time off, or if it's a weekend, like you said, like, let's do 5 minutes with you in this room, and you go wait in the car for a minute or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we work up to like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, go have a shower, like, go watch a movie or something, and work on getting the dog to be alone in that safe space.
Yeah.
I know we've talked before about like adaptable diffusers and pheromones and things.
That's actually, they're recommending that more and more for a transition phase, where everybody thinks you're only going to use those when there's like anxiety or whatever. But I was talking to a vet one time, and she was getting a new puppy, and right away she sent them an adaptal collar to put on a few days before the dog was coming to her home for that calming effect. So there are different ways to help that transition. The other thing is they need to get to know the noises of your house and the smells of your house, right? So playing a bit of classical music or background noise helps, because some dogs, especially if they haven't been inside a lot, the shifting of the house and that sort of thing is a concern.
Yeah, and getting them used to their new home, right? And so these are the sounds that happen in this home, and maybe in some homes that's different than others. Like sometimes there's music always playing or kids always moving around or whatever, and other times it's really quiet and you can hear the house creak and it's scary. And there's the transition period of getting them used to the actual home. The other thing to take into consideration is any other animals living in the home.
Right.
So getting them used to not just their physical environment, but the people and the animals that are going to be sort of moving in and out of there.
Right. So where we're going to go with that is ideally, again, rescue dog or puppy, if you have access to that breeder able to bring your dogs, you actually should be doing meets and greets without the dog actually even moving to the house yet. Yeah. So they get to know them before they come in, and family. One thing we are going to suggest is, when they first come in for that day or two, I know everybody's excited for the dogs to meet, wants them to be best friends, but that can be extremely overwhelming if family members start bringing their dogs in, and there's just so much more, again, to meet and greet, and there's more people and there's more dogs. It can just be overwhelming, and then unfortunately there may be a negative experience.
Yeah.
And then we're sitting there wondering, well, maybe this wasn't a good idea. We just really need to set them up for success.
Yeah, and I think like if there's a dog that is really important that they meet and like they live in that same house or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Within that first 2 weeks is a great time to like slowly start building that relationship.
But I just think they don't necessarily need to meet every single person, every single dog in the family within that first period.
Yeah, and having everybody coming into their new space and all that stuff can be really stressful.
Yeah.
But then there's also, I don't know if you want to touch on like briefly cats in the house.
Yep.
So getting them used to a new species of animal that they maybe have not seen.
Right, and I suggest, again, not doing the wait and see method. Which sometimes will sort of kick you in the butt, but I actually recommend is them seeing the cat within the first few days. I think the mistake a lot of people do is have them live separate for like months, and then all of a sudden they know they're there, they hear them, they smell them, then all of a sudden say, here, look at this, and the dog's like, the dog's settled in, and then all of a sudden this thing's moving around. But again, it's all about controlled, so there can be gates and the cat can be moving a little bit while the dog's busy. I just think the dog will do better knowing that animal is coexisting in there, and then slowly bringing them together.
Yeah, and all of that is socialization, right? Like when we think of socialization, people think they need to be in like a pile of puppies playing, or like people need to be like handing the puppy to everybody and touching the puppy. But seeing other animals existing and, getting used to their movements and the way that they smell and all that.
So where I want to go from what you said there is, let's talk about starting to exercise or bond with them through walking.
Okay.
Right? So which you're mentioning socialization. Again, depending upon the age, like obviously an 8-week-old puppy isn't going to go out for a 5K walk, right? But I don't necessarily recommend that for an adult rescue either, because you don't know if they've had leash experience. You don't know how stressful they are. So honestly, going out the front door and just seeing how it goes.
Yeah.
Right? Like take a block here or there, but people aren't realizing the smells in the environment. They're not realizing the sounds in the environment. Like a lot of people don't realize that some of the dogs aren't aware of traffic or traffic sounds, and that's something totally new.
Or that's very scary. If they have had previous bad experiences with traffic, that can be really scary, and then you're stuck away from your house with a dog who's having a panic attack.
The thing is, you're stuck away from your house. If you've walked 20 minutes out, then you have to walk those 20 minutes back. My suggestion is, again, just go out and just go with how things are going. Like there's no reason why you can't walk around the block 4 times.
Yeah, and I think like with way back in season 1, we did our leash walking expectations episode.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We've had lots of really good feedback on that, but I think it's a good one, especially if you have a young puppy, because with us teaching like puppy play school and other younger dogs, what I'm hearing a lot is they are laying down and they don't want to walk.
They don't want to walk.
And
or they're pulling. Well,
they're pulling. So there's these expectations that maybe we don't have to go into all of them, but maybe we need to manage them a little bit, especially in those first few weeks where it's like, let's just get to know the dog and bond with them.
Not expecting them to walk and heel right beside us, not expecting them to give us 100% attention in a new environment. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Well, and when we think about the bonding, like how much bonding are you doing if you're being pulled down the street or you're dragging the puppy down the street and everybody's frustrated and everybody's having a bad time? Right. I think with building the relationship, we want to focus more on like simple things, like when we're just hanging out together in the house, you know, maybe like starting to reward them for laying down calmly on their mat and not structure these like training sessions immediately. Because everybody wants to know, when can I start recall? When can I start heel? When can I start all of that stuff? I think the like life skills of being around the house and being around your neighborhood and all that are going to be the things that will help build that bond between you, rather than focusing on, how soon can my puppy start agility?
Yes. And I think, again, it's a learning curve. And, from myself having children, like, how long are they in school learning these things? And then all of a sudden we think, I'm not sure why we necessarily put the expectations on dogs where they have to be good and do everything within months, rather than
even in the first year. And they're going through, the physical changes. We talked about adolescent dogs and all that. Like there's going to be all these changes. There's going to be, it'll be a process. Not everything's going to happen in this 2 weeks, but we just wanted to focus on the 2 weeks because it tends to be like the most exciting, the most like, I'm going to do everything with my puppy. And so let's give some examples of maybe what we can do.
Because remember, now everybody's learning to cohabitate together, and there's going to be compromises. There's going to be slight changes because, again, you're figuring out who each other are living together in the same household.
Yeah, well, and even just like the routines, right? Like if they've been used to just doing their own thing, and then we're like, okay, we're going to go to bed and turn all the lights off and everything's going to get silent at 10 p.m. They need to get used to that sort of stuff. So when we're talking about socialization, we're talking about all of the things they're going to experience in life, right? We're not just talking about dogs and people, which are important because we need them to meet dogs and people that don't live in their home. But why don't we talk about some examples that we could start doing with the puppy to start building that bond and start their socialization at home?
Right. So again, it might just be exploring doorways and hallways, walking around, sniffing the home, figuring out where they're most comfortable. So again, where do they go lay down? Do they choose the kitchen floor? Do they choose the couch, right? So that sort of thing. And then to kick in, like I said, we're going to talk about house training, but assume that they have no house training.
Right.
And show the dog which door to go in and out. Show the dog where you want them to go in the yard, whether you have a fenced-in yard or they're going out on leash, that sort of thing. Because we don't realize that that's probably somewhere where they're all of a sudden in this house and they just don't know how to get out and they don't know necessarily how to express. And same with puppies, the way even most breeders will do a little bit of house training with them, but they still need to be able to maneuver the house and find the door. So some of the things is slowly introducing the house. Don't say, okay, go for it, go upstairs, downstairs, everything, right? So maybe give them a certain room with the kitchen and the door and then work through that and then work through sort of a larger area as they're getting more comfortable.
And exploring those areas and then doing things in those areas. So like when you're talking about the hallways and the kitchens and whatever, like the hallway maybe has carpet and then the kitchen has tile and that's weird.
Sometimes
and
an issue,
whether it's a puppy, whether it's an adult dog that just hasn't lived in a house with those textures. You want your dog to be able to walk on different surfaces. Like that's something that I would start at home pretty early. I'm not going to have them like running and splaying out on laminate floors or something, but I'm going to maybe do like let them explore, do a couple searches or something with the puppy in that room just to go, okay, we're walking on this texture. That's no big deal. Same thing like if you have area rugs in certain rooms, like things that are different textures, we underestimate how much that matters, I think, to some dogs. And we have this conversation about like winter puppies and summer puppies and the learning to pee on snow and then suddenly the snow is gone.
And then the grass,
so just getting them used to as many things as we possibly can that they're going to need to like walk on or touch or, talking about things like handling skills.
Right, okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. In order to make our puppy more comfortable, there are certain times where we're going to need to gently grab them or hold them, to put a collar on, to put a leash on, to maneuver them from one. So it's about introducing that slowly. Again, if your puppy hopefully is somewhat food motivated and you've found something to reward them with, because a lot of times when they're first moving in, I would say you're rewarding calm behavior just for them to hanging out, not being frantic. And that's how you're sort of building that relationship. Sometimes that can also be with toys. You're sort of figuring that out, what they like and don't like. With that sort of relationship is, like you were saying before, everybody sort of like sits and downs, and that's okay to do a little bit. But what about, just reaching them gently under the chin and rewarding them, or just gently grabbing the collar and rewarding,
or putting on the collar.
Putting on the collar, putting on the harness, right? And the thing is, you don't want to chase them down to do that. So it has to come with time, and it has to be patience on your part. A lot of times they learn sitting down quickly, which again, we're saying go for it. But it's just, not expecting them to be totally trained in 2 weeks, but anything you can work at a little bit. The other suggestion I have a little bit, I'm shifting gears a bit, I just had the thought, is in the backyard. It wouldn't hurt to put, if you have a fenced-in backyard, put like a long line or a leash. Because you don't know if you put them out there and then you go back to get them and then they're like, I have no idea who you are, or no, I'm not coming in. And then there's more emotion there of you chasing this dog around the backyard. So it's just trying to keep everything calm and relaxed.
And I think when it comes to the handling stuff specifically, calm and relaxed isn't probably what most people think of when they think of like baths and nail trims and all the other things that they have to do. Like, you are going to have to take that puppy to the vet, and they're going to get poked, and they're not going to love it. Like, let's work on some of that handling so it's not the end of the world, and we could still have some of that trust. The nails, I think, are a big thing. We see a lot of people who are saying, my dog can't have their nails done. They were so good as a puppy. Why are they not so good now? because we haven't actually worked on the skills. We've just snuck on them while they were sleeping and cut the nails and then said, yeah, let's move on. So I think practicing those skills, like, again, it's not necessarily heel and obedience, but it's something that's going to help your dog throughout the next, 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I was going to say lifelong, where, because you don't want to say traumatize them or stress them out, and then they have to be sedated every 6 months for nail trims. Yeah. And again, I think what Amelia really wanted to get when she brought up this point with me is just, don't just focus on, you have to walk and heel, you have to do sit, you have to do stay. People are funny with stay too. Have to do stay. You have to have a really good recall, but there's other, more like with hygiene, there's other things, because we have to recognize some signals and be able to tell whether there's something wrong. Yeah. But there are times where we have to give them different medications and stuff. So it's okay to start slow and sit on the floor and just sort of figure that out and do a little bit of touching
handle
and
a little foot and treat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And getting them used to that sort of thing.
I just don't think we take enough time. I don't feel that people take enough time to do that, and they only seem to do it in a panic when the dog has an ear infection or something.
Yes, and I always say in my first week of puppy play school, don't try to train giving a bath to your dog when they need a bath, when they have rolled in something, when they are stinky, whatever. Start with, running the bathtub water and feeding them their dinner while they hear the sounds, and then maybe put them in the bathtub with a little water to splash around in and some toys, or smear some peanut butter around the tub and they can walk around. So there's lots of things that we can do.
So I've been saying a lot more is be proactive, not reactive.
Love it.
Yeah. So don't
quote. You stole the first quote of season 4.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Oh. Maybe that'll be our theme. Oh. But the thing is, again, saying it time and time again, we can set up those training situations instead of just reacting in the moment, because a lot of time reacting in the moment is overwhelming, and it's catching us off guard, and then we feel a little bit guilty or a little bit disappointed in ourselves when we react like that.
Yeah. I think one of the things we also want to quickly touch on very briefly is when we're talking about socialization, people always want to ask, my dog hasn't had their rabies vaccine, or they haven't, they're not fully vaccinated yet. I heard that I'm not allowed to have people come over. I'm not allowed to introduce them to dogs. Like, as a vet tech, what is your perspective on that?
So, ideally they say in our world that more dogs are going to have behavioral issues than they are going to have rabies, as far as the socialization, but there are very safe ways to do it. You want to socialize with dogs that are already vaccinated, friends, family, that sort of thing. Yeah. Pretty sure they're not going to get much going out on the street. I wouldn't recommend, you're going to go run off leash or bring them to a dog park. Not going to recommend that, or the pet stores. But the majority of it is quite safe. Yeah. Right? Because, we're also concerned a little bit about parvo, and that's spread through poop and, that contact. So as long as the other dogs are vaccinated, you're not going into, high population of random dogs. It's really important to experience life and get outside in front of the house for sure.
And I've heard it said that socialization is the behavioral vaccination.
Oh,
there's my quote. Got my quote in.
Quote too.
But because you're essentially exposing them to these things in small, safe amounts to prevent a bigger issue later on, which is exactly what we do with our vaccines, right? Yeah. So it's about doing it safely and not, like you said, taking them out to the dog park, putting them on the floor in a pet store, somewhere where there's random dogs everywhere. Safe dogs that, you are familiar with, and people that aren't gonna, go in and put your dog in an unsafe situation.
Right.
So, let's maybe summarize a little bit, because we talked about a lot of things.
We did.
And we're talking about the first 2 weeks, and this is so many things. But it's to not be overwhelming to the person. It's to not be overwhelming to the dog. To take things slowly. Right. Focus on the things that matter right now.
So things being the behavior and the acceptance of the household and the yard, basically, I would think would be the first few weeks. It's not, walking around Boulevard and working on heeling and meeting every single dog you can. That will come with time.
Yes, and so as long as they have an appropriate socialization experience with, a little bit of everything, we want to make sure that they're just comfortable and that they're adapting, and that that's going to set them up for a little bit of an easier time when it comes time to do the training, because you already have that bond.
Yeah, and and I think a lot of people are just worried about, socialize, but, you still have, a good amount of time, because if you build that really good relationship within the first few weeks and there's trust and stuff, everything else will fall into place and will just sort of work its way out. So you don't want to create this major anxiety and then you're moving into your relationship that way. So again, family dogs, family people, have some fun a little bit with your sits and downs, work on, the handling, touching ears, putting the collar on and off the harness, in and out of the door a little bit, hang out in the yard, maybe get around the block, that
play
sort
some
of thing.
Sounds, some thunderstorms, some, things that are going to happen in their life, but we can find a safe space for them, and then we can focus on all the super obedience and agility and all that later.
Right, because the other thing, actually, I tell a lot of people, and I've been doing this more with some of my reactive dogs, is get that relationship and teach the behaviors in the house, then in the yard, then on walks, right? Because you can't go from just doing it 2 or 3 times in the house and then expect them to do it on a walk.
Right. So it all starts at home anyway.
Right. So we hope through this that you guys will definitely get something from this podcast and just ease into it. I think is we're giving you permission to ease into it. I think, and then not, feel overwhelmed that you have to do all this, and it will come with time. And yes, walking and mat and all that's important, but just get them comfortable and build that trust.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to Season 4 of the Dog Classroom Podcast. If you have any questions, suggestions for future episodes, you can always find us on social media, on our website, thedogclassroom.com. And we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you.